Excellent. So, as I said, we have very senior HR leaders and folks who are actively also hiring in the area of products. So let me actually introduce each of them. I'd start with Ramprasad. Yes, welcome to the discussion. Thanks for being here. Ram is the president of Xpanxion, interestingly spelt, but apparently pronounced Xpanxion, which is a UST global company in the area of product services. I'm sure many of the folks have heard of, in India especially, engineering services company, but few may have heard of product services company, which is the Xpanxion and UST Global works with product companies in helping them build products, right? So a pretty exciting space, I would say. Ram is also the chairman of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, right? And he was also the president of Software Exporters Association of Pune. So Ram, before I go to the panelist, a really quick view from you on a lot of we can't have any discussion these days without bringing in the current unprecedented time that we are in, COVID situation. So what's your advice, a simple advice for people who are kind of maybe worrying a little bit about what situation they are in? So you need to unmute, Ram. You need to unmute.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So yeah, that worked. So can you repeat that again for me, please, Sai?
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely, Ram. So I was saying, we can't have any discussion these days without talking about the current unprecedented situation, COVID situation. And for those of the folks who are, kind of worrying, what's your advice on, should we, it's okay to worry, or, give us a little bit of advice for everyone on that aspect of it.
Yes, absolutely. So I believe that little bit of worrying is not bad, right? So let's not worry about worrying.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
so I think like we've seen with every challenges and issues in the past, even this will pass. So it sounds philosophical, but that's a fact of the matter. And I also believe in the strength of community thinking, collective innovation, and given the fact that this is a global issue, everybody across the globe are working together to address this problem. And they say that creativity and innovation works best when there is constraints and crisis. So because you are forced and you're compelled to get out of your comfort zone, there'll be a lot of creative solutions coming out of it. And I'm very confident that the world is going to be a better place.
Great. And I'm also sure that we try as best as possible to avoid information overload on COVID for some time at least. I think it's tempting to get into that, but possibly a good thing to not to spend too much time on that. Thanks, Ram. And I'll come back to you when we start getting into the discussion. I'd like to introduce Venkataraman. Hi, Venkat. You can wave your hand so that folks can put a name to face. Venkat is a Senior Vice President and Chief HR Officer for Candela Labs. Most of you might be familiar with Candela Labs. It's a fintech company. It offers automation services for insurers and banks. Pretty exciting space to be in these days. So Venkat, what's your quick advice on, what should people and businesses do, simply put, in this current context? You also need to unmute. I'm sorry, I think looks, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I'll not talk much about COVID. That's pretty short. I think these kind of situation will come, right? Every 2-3 years, there'll be something like this which will come. And this time it's a global issue. The scale is really worrying. Very simply, I'd say it's going to build some kind of a resilience to both people and business. And this will again fuel the next cycle of innovation. That's what I think so.
So you're saying the situations like this where both people and businesses will build more resilience so that we have better ways to deal with this, not just from an individual capacity, but from a systemic perspective as well.
Absolutely. 3-4 months, it's going to be there as an issue. I think 6 months down the line, there'll be obviously some kind of innovation which will kind of help us to manage such situations in the future.
Great. Thank you. So I'd like to introduce now Varadharaju. Hi, Varda. If you can show your hand and wave so that, great, awesome. So Varda is head of HR and VP at 24/7 AI. I'm sure many of you have seen that company on Outer Ring Road in Bangalore with a big 24/7 logo on top of it. It's a customer experience company. I believe it has products around contact center technology using now machine learning and AI to even go to the extent of understanding customer intent, consumer intent, which is a very dangerous thing, I would say, but is a fascinating area. I come from customer experience background myself, and the possibilities are enormous, right? So Varda is also a tech startup advisor, a coach, and a mentor. But interestingly, I think maybe you are the right person, Varda, to give us some more gyan on COVID and how it is affecting the behavioral patterns, because you are writing some series of articles on LinkedIn these days. Looks like either you want everybody to not panic and take it slow and get take a step back and get perspective. So what is prompting you to do the series of articles on LinkedIn on COVID and its effects on psychology and behavioral patterns?
Yeah, thanks, Sai, for your kind introduction. So I think it's a great question to really answer. See, it's once in a lifetime that we go through such situation. Like maybe people are talking about 100 years back, such pandemic situation that really happened. So when we kind of get exposed to an unknown or an adversity, what typically happens is we react too much. When we react too much, Ram also said that we start to worry about the worry, and that's the biggest. So worrying about the worry is the biggest worry, and it's like a spiral, and it will take you down to a path, if you don't control it, to an anxiety and depression. So if you look at some of the words which are very, very new to the Indian context, social distancing, something we are social animals. Now we are talking about social distancing. Second is lockdown. We never heard of such of lockdown, maybe for a century here. And then with all of this coming around, what really kind of getting impact, of course, organizations are moving into virtual kind of an environment, but it creates unnecessary panic among individuals if we don't handle it properly. Whichever that organization put measures in terms of communication, infrastructure, technology to improve the execution or productivity, unless until if the employee emotional well-being is not taken control, I don't think an individual can be at 100%.
So are you writing these series to help organization take stock of situation as to what you should consider now going forward with the
Exactly, that's the intent. In fact, I just published my series 2 just a couple of hours.
Excellent. I think all of us can go and take a look at that. I just read series 1, and which fascinated me, hence that question. Thanks for being here, Varda. And I'd now like to introduce Akhil. Akhil, you could go on, you could unmute yourself and say hi. Yep.
Hi guys.
So Akhil is a co-founder and CTO of Zolo. And I'm pretty sure many of you have heard of Zolo. And again, this is the same thing I used to constantly, it used to be visible, especially on the Outer Ring Road and Sarjapur Road in Bangalore. And initially, a few years ago, I used to wonder what this is. And it's become so popular now. For those of you who are still unfamiliar with it, it's a co-living platform and provides managed hostels, managed PGs, where people who are coming from different parts of the country can just find a really good, comfortable, quick accommodation and facilities that are required to just start, get started, right? So it's amazing how things have changed around, right? So for people who have moved from different cities, even 5 years ago or 10 years ago in the city, first 1 month went in hunting the right place to stay and complaints from house owners saying that we don't want to give it to bachelors, and that's a common refrain from bachelors that say that I'm still taking time to find. Now when I meet people who are just joining the workforce, that's not even a question, right? They're saying that, oh yeah, day one I have Wi-Fi, I have clean living rooms, I have TV, I have everything that I need, and on day one. So thank you for doing that, Akhil. I think it's amazing how you transformed your company, have transformed this. So any advice from you on how you are dealing, your company is dealing, not advice, I would say your perspective on how you're dealing with this situation?
So there are multiple factors involved. One of the key factors is the hygiene that we need to maintain at the properties, awareness among residents. So awareness is, I guess, already covered, but still kind of putting out some kind of best guidelines how to kind of function in a co-living setup. We moved a lot of people who were on a sharing basis to private rooms, and primarily, and we also deliver food to a good number of residents.
Wow.
So kind of providing those facilities, managing things through, and as such, I would say the government authorities have been quite supportive. There were issues in the beginning, in the first 1 or 2 days, when we didn't know how to get passes and all those things. There was some confusion, but things have been going pretty well. And we do get emails or thank you notes that, hey, earlier we were not providing lunch, so now we are providing lunch as well. So, and yeah, so things are moving, but it has certainly hit our demand cycle. So generally, this cycle of May and June is the highest, is the peak season, where we really don't even have to market. Like we get customers, so many customers come to our website organically.
Because I guess that's when the companies start onboarding the new employees. June, July is the time frame, right?
A lot of interns, a lot of new hires.
Yeah.
So the whole projection has changed. So we have revised our growth targets, and as of today, I guess we somewhere I would say we are managing the situation, but it's certainly a stressful situation for the company, and we really need to come out of it. The good part is that there is a bright light at the end of the tunnel, because once this is over, people would want to stay in professionally managed co-living spaces rather than local PGs. They would have that appetite to pay $1,000-$2,000 extra, and even from the supply perspective, where the building owners would also want to deal with the organized players. So it's not just for Zolo, it's also for Oyo Life, for Candela, for Oxford.
So I think the experience that you provide during these times is going to determine and change how these co-living spaces are going to be viewed after this, is what you're saying. That's amazing. So, and thanks for that. I think what you're doing, especially for people who are locked in those, managed PGs, it's very difficult unless you offer that help, and you're doing that. It's heartening to hear that. Excellent. So I think, the topic for today is future of hiring, and specifically around 3 trends, but looks like we have at least 4 people who can give 4 very different perspectives. So expect more than 3 insights and 3 viewpoints here. So let me go to Ram. Ram, from your point of view, if you were to look at the industry, especially the hiring patterns or how that might change in the context of, let's say, products or data careers, what do you see emerging as a trend? I'm sure there are many, but if you can pick one that you believe is going to be interesting.
Yeah, thanks. First and foremost is that the need to find local talent, that ideology and that mentality is over. Right? But the fact that everybody is a remote worker today, it immediately means now you have access to a global workforce in a literal sense, right? At the end of the day, it does not matter where my next product manager or my software engineer is going to come from. He could be coming from Russia, he could come from Aurangabad, or he can be any part of the world, right?
Yeah.
As long as he's equipped with the right tools and skills to able to provide the right outcome. So that opens immense possibilities for all of us, right? So we no longer need to be feeling constrained. Second, from a capability standpoint, at a very core basic level, I think it's very evident that everyone needs to be digital savvy. Whether it's an HR professional, whether it's an admin person, it's a software engineer, not just from a perspective of knowing how to leverage technology or digital for that matter, but also how to bring that in the products that we build, right? So right, whether it's a user experience or whether you're talking about feature functionality, but the ability to inherently think digital is going to be so important. Third is contextual thinking, right? Contextual thinking is going to be another very important ability that you're going to see required in any role, whether it is again, whether it's a corporate function or whether it is a technology role or product role. Ability to put context first, understand customer, understand business. Those are going to be very relevant. And last but not the least, in an environment moving forward, I think it's going to be very holacratic in the sense that you're going to expect teams to be self-managed. So the ability to manage your own self, the ability to communicate well, manage your time well, solve your own problems, be very entrepreneurial in the way you approach work are going to be some critical, parameters that I think we would be looking for in people.
Awesome. So I think you've outlined 4 areas that you see, but one thing that stands out, and I'll come back to you on the other ones, is what you mentioned is location agnostic hiring, right? That's the increasing trend that you believe is going to, which means people are going to be remote, people are going to be anywhere, and I don't need to necessarily ask them to come to the office location or workplace or headquarters or whatever it is, right? So I think it'll be good if you can get a quick poll from the audience around whether how do they prefer remote working, how do they see remote working panning out, in not just in the context of COVID, but how would COVID also impact? So can we have that quick poll? There you go. I think we can see folks. Go ahead and take a few seconds to give your perspective on what do you think remote working will pan out to be, right? Now that's an astounding thumbs up for a steep rise. So it looks like most people are comfortable, huh? For all that apprehensions that we had, both as an organization, as individuals. But of course, this poll doesn't say what they would prefer individually. They're just saying, here is a trend that we think is going to happen. Now, that's good. So I think what I'd like to do now is to go to Venkat, right? And Venkat, if you can outline 1 or 2 trends that you're seeing, especially in hiring, best practices, or how they are emerging, right? There are different ones that are emerging, so that'll be useful.
Sure. Thanks, Sai.
Sure.
See, one point is there'll be a rise in contractual jobs, which are purely assignment based, right? People will start looking at whether short-term or long-term assignment. That will be a new norm. So there's nothing that, always there's a full-time employment. At least most of the countries, they look at full-time employment is much better and the superior than contract job. That will fade away. There'll be good scope for SMEs and freelancers. It could be a solution consultant or a UX designer who will just come, build a solution and then move on like 1 year or so. And obviously from the HR front, the NDAs, the way they look at signing a contract is going to change, right? People will work for more than 2 companies or 3 companies. So that will give a different challenge to HR folks as well as when more.
Are you saying that this is more towards the gig workers, or is it, is it appropriate to phrase it that way?
Gig is also a common term to use, right? I mean, it's just not See, there'll be a lot of scope for subject matter experts who will have independence to choose on their own, right? In terms of they're just not going to be full-time employment with a company. They can just choose that I'll do something in the morning and I'll just work on a remote basis. There'll be more and more independence than people sitting on to full-time employment and say, like, I'm going to work with this company for 10 years. That's something which will be...
And does this have to do anything with the emerging demographics around, especially we had a very interesting discussion yesterday about Gen Zs, right? Which is folks who are digital natives, are comfortable with, technology devices everywhere, and all they need is access to communication, technology and devices, and I can work from anywhere, especially in the context of knowledge work. Yeah.
Absolutely. Geographical borders will fade away. People can work from anywhere. I think times are a real example, right? I mean, people can just take up except for a few jobs.
Yeah.
That's going to be on the rise. And the other trend, see, there's a famous saying, skills are global currency in the employment market. Yes, skills are global currency. I think we should remember that shelf life for skills are getting shorter and shorter. 5 years, 6 years, people used to have one skill and they can, work around and just take up an employment or whatever. So here we're talking about maximum 1 or 2 years, not beyond that. That's the rate at which technology is growing. So companies will start looking at hiring people with greater learning agility, just not skill. So hence the hiring methodology will change. They will look at people who will come and solve real-time problems in front of you, instead looking at how many years of experience, what your skill set. Typically in the HR world, we say, look at potential and agility, not performance. That's going to be more and more.
So from a person who is aspiring to get to different roles and jobs, the single message I think from you was that constantly upskill and reskill. It's not just acquiring new skill, but the pace at which you acquire them and learn different ones, right? So one is the agility, the other one is constant need to reskill oneself, right? And that's going to be a very important aspect of it. Excellent. And we'll come back and peel that a little more. Akhil, your perspective, or not perspective, I think, what do you see really now, trends, especially now that you are in CTO, you are a co-founder, you are hiring lots of product folks, engineering folks into these roles, and how is that changing or potentially changing in the next couple of years?
Got it. So one thing I would say is that we've kept the team quite lean for a long period of time, and we plan to do the same. Rather, it's becoming leaner and more leaner over time. And the number of positions or the number of people required to do a certain job is certainly reducing. Whether it's managing infrastructure because of AWS, GCP, whether it's building an application where the frameworks have kind of evolved enough where 2-3 guys can build a very strong application. 5 guys can, like, we are working in pods, we're working in then tribes where it's a team of just 4 to 5 people who are executing the whole project. Right. So certainly I would say, like, and given that we have been very thoughtful on whom we are getting in, and I believe that the interview process will exceed maybe the time spent on interviewing will remain the same. The number of hires might reduce, but the interview process will expand, where people are being very cautious of who's getting into the team. How do we kind of figure out this? First of all, is this person right from a skill set point of view, then the working style, then the work ethics. So there are various other parameters which we will start interviewing. Right. I believe that the remote hiring trend should and will increase.
In what way? In what way do you see remote hiring will change?
So, for example, especially in startups case or in our case, if someone is not from Bangalore, it used to be like that person or that candidate goes into a lower priority, that okay, the coordination for interviewing is going to be tough. It's not just the candidate side, there is a interviewer side as well. So there is generally you can call it inertia or some kind of challenge from TA side, from HR side, from interviewer side, which is reducing. I just checked out some of the panelists are sitting in Pune. Like it didn't even come to me, right? So that we are sitting in different cities right now. So so that barrier has certainly has been challenged. And most of the guys have actually, or with the technology, with the internet speed and connection we have, I have not faced any internet issues since lockdown.
Yeah.
Right?
So
these things.
Right. To kind of, I think, paraphrase the two main things that you're bringing up is one, the type of jobs that people used to do are changing and may not require as many people as we used to, which means there's going to be increased focus and investment on accelerating automation, if that is the right way to look at it. Now, that doesn't mean that people should be worried or scared about it, which means that it's an opportunity to everyone to start looking at what is the next thing that I can do that automation is not yet there, right? So the type of work that we should look at that humans can do. The other thing you brought up very interesting is you're saying that it is not clear whether we are hiring somebody, whether they can do that job or not. Now, how can we de-risk that part? I mean, is there a pattern that you're seeing before onboarding that person full-time into a company? Is there something going on?
So we have done this from a long time, since the inception of the company itself. We were a very small team earlier, where if we roll out an offer, so we used to ask the person to come on Saturdays or take leave from his office and work with us. We call it working days. Where we have not enrolled the person. We have not even, sometimes we would have rolled out an offer letter. Sometimes we would have said that, hey, let's decide the offer letter afterwards. It's an opportunity for us to evaluate you better, and opportunity for the candidate to understand the culture of the team and culture of the company. Right. So, and especially whoever we are hiring in product, once they cross 4 to 5 years of experience, certainly their priority is very much into how's the culture of the company, how's the culture of the team over any other thing. Like over package value, it comes up.
This is really fascinating. I'm sure I want to get perspective on this from the other HR folks here, whether that is acceptable even in their companies. What you're saying is, Akhil, let's try this person before hiring from your perspective. And from a candidate's perspective, also, it's a great way to say, is this the right place for me to work, right? Let me try it out before committing myself to an organization. And I personally believe that this is going to be a trend too. But let me ask other panelists, are you going to say absolutely no, or no? It's going to change. So anyone?
Yeah.
It depends on the business sector we are in, right? There are some businesses where it's been driven by your data security confidentiality agreement. It is important that we honor them. Yeah. And therefore, unless until there is a commit from the candidate on board, you can't really expose. Yeah. Wherever there is a possibility where you don't have such glitches, I think we should be open enough in exploring this new way of working. For example, what we really do is we have a user research lab in our organization. When we really interview the candidate, they come and present their portfolios, what they've really done in the past. It's a day-long presentation. They really talk about the design, how it's going to really impact, and then it becomes very conversational. You again give them a case study, case study, not a very hypothetical. So really come back and then present. So what this gives is the experience. Yeah. So what are we trying to really do is experience that we are really sharing, both for the candidate and also for the organization. Then we kind of, it's marriage, right? Yeah. You try to kind of tie the knot and then really move on. Not marriage goes for the longest period of the time.
Yeah.
It depends on how the culture that we really kind of take over. So all of this. So the answer is yes and no.
No, I think you brought a very, very important point. But before I get to that, Vardha, I think could take a really quick poll in the context of what you're saying. I think what you're saying is, it is time that we actually ask people to show what problems they can solve or how they can solve, as opposed to saying, I have solved this before. And hence you have to trust me and believe me that I'm going to solve it for you, which is a very traditional way and continued hiring practice using the resume, because resume is nothing but a reflection of what you did in the past, and not necessarily what you can, how you can bring those skills. So I want to take a moment to just ask for a poll around this part, right? So a lot of folks that we talk to say, look, my resume is impressive. I think, I've spent 20 years, 15 years doing this, and I'm trying to get to this new role, and I'm not hearing back. So I think let's see what people hear from this poll. If we could launch the poll around, what is the importance that folks are giving towards the resume. Is a poll coming up? Okay, we'll continue the discussion as it comes up. But going back to what you're saying, Vardha, is both. It's going to be yes, the approach that Akhil outlined, and I'm sure he got this idea from running Zolo itself, not necessarily hiring people. That you try this before you feel comfortable about it, and you're saying that. This applies obviously for certain sectors, and certain things it may not, which is absolutely fair. But more and more increasingly, it is going to be that folks are going to try, looking from a demonstration of what you bring to the table. Give a problem, give a challenge, give 24 hours, give 48 hours. And I think, what I'm also seeing is the industry seems to call this as a fancy word. Well, not a fancy word. It's been in use in other industries, like job auditions, as we call them, right? If you're hiring, or rather an actor who wants a job in a movie, auditions has been going on forever, right? Which is basically coming and showcasing a single emotion or whatever it is. Now, in the professional, in our context, in products and data, ability to come and demonstrate, here is how I can show market analysis for your product in that country, or here is how I think you should position this product in this particular marketplace or segment. And not just saying that I know pricing, I know market sizing, I know market analysis, but taking a practical example is going to be. Tell me if I am over-interpreting this, Vardha, but this is what I'm gathering from what you're on mute, by the way, in case you wanted to talk, right? So, excellent. So let me go back to Ram. Ram, in terms of, you mentioned the remote working. Can you more elaborate on the two kinds of remote workers that we are seeing? I think we also touched upon this, which is people who are tied to a company, have a contract, an employee contract, and can now work from anywhere else. But people who are also without tied to a company, which is a gig economy that we talked about. So is that going to be in favor for in the context of product companies and data companies, or you don't see that happening anytime soon?
I think a combination of both. It depends a lot on the role for which you're hiring. Some roles you expect the person to be fully, in the zone, focused on what you're building, because product engineering is a fairly complex activity, as you all know, right? And you need to have some dedicated mind space and time that you can spend on it, right? However, there could be some roles which you can afford to, just have a person just in time. They come in, they just do the job, and then they leave, right? It could be, let's say, I need an opinion on my user experience.
Yeah.
Right? Go to a specialist and I get an input from him. So I think it's going to be very contextual to the nature of work. And also the role that I spoke about.
No, so that's very relevant, actually, bringing back to what you're doing. So, Akhil, do you see, so especially, there are some areas in the area of products, like product management, where you keep hearing these days about AI product management. Now, it's a very heavily overloaded phrase, right? But still, that title and that role is becoming increasingly popular, right? So, my interpretation of that is basically now products are collecting enormous amount of data, right? For example, I'm sure your Zolo app or any other apps that we are using are collecting lots of information about the users, about the usage, about the, so that in order to improve the experience of it, right? Now, but that also means that the traditional product managers who come with user research, asking questions, customer discovery, empathy, and all of that, while still are useful, there are new skills now coming up with, which are becoming important, which I call them as, niche skills. Is that a fad, you think, or is that something that you're going to see increasing regularly? I mean, exponentially.
So it's certainly going to increase. Now, from a product guy, the expectation is that the person is actually continuously improving his skills. Like, one thing which I would like to mention is that when we are hiring, we are certainly looking for, other than academic excellence, that in the recent years, in last 2-3 years, what are the types of problems that guy has solved? If the guy is, let's say, if the candidate himself is saying that, hey, my job is not challenging for last 2 years or so, and I want to join you. So then we certainly look for that. What is it that you have done to enhance your skill? To either you have done a MOOC course, or you have done some kind of online degree, or you've done a certain course, right? And that's the growth mindset is the base expectation from a product person. If your fundamentals are right, if you are expert at user research, on understanding the customer, then we don't see an issue in complementing the person with a data guy. But if your fundamentals are right, and if you are working towards improving your skills, then even you will, the assumption is that you will also enhance.
No, I mean, then there is no question of there's no question of talking about niche skills if the fundamental aspects of methods, approaches, and skills of understanding what market problems to solve, even, right? And so I think, again, an interesting point to take a quick check to see from the audience, to again, a quick poll on applying let's say machine learning or AI techniques to a product in the context of making decisions around a product. Is that going to be increasing in trend, or is that, hey, people, it's a buzzword, they're just talking about it, it will fade away, just like many things have faded away before, right? So it looks like an overwhelming majority are saying that no, absolutely not. We need those machine learning and AI skills. So, which is a good thing, I think, which also goes back to your point, Vardha, around having jobs that are of high value, creating jobs that are of high value, where humans can do more, where automation and other techniques can take care of a lot of things that humans are doing today, right? So would you agree with what our audience are saying in that context? You're on mute, by the way. Vardha, yes.
I think these are some very, very important trends that we should really observe. Let me give I think Akhil gave a great example. Let me kind of give HR tinge to it. What could be the future role of HR can really evolve with the current change of scenarios? I'm just foreseeing that we might probably club hiring somebody with a psychology background with the data sciences. What it really means is a psychologist would really understand the human behavior by having a good understanding of the models. Your data scientist model can actually draw predictions of your human behavior, because these are uncertain times. So it's important that you really understand your customer's intent. It's not just your customer intents in the business, but also within the organization. And therefore, HR can actually draw a very meaningful engagement that has a real impact on productivity, real impact on the top and bottom line. So I really second the thought process.
So, I think you are addressing some of the questions that I'm seeing coming through the audience, and I'll get to that in a minute. Before that, Ram, you mentioned ability to self-manage and being able to communicate clearly, not just to your peers, but also to your stakeholders. So what you're referring to is a set of soft skills that one needs to master, right? Or at least is going to be very important going forward. Could you elaborate a few on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So two different contexts here. One is if you're going to be building a product, and what Akhil mentioned earlier, that you need to understand user perspectives, customer perspectives. So when you need to do that, you have to get into the skin of how their behavior is going to be, right? Whether you are an engineer, whether you're a data scientist, or you're working on the front-end piece, that comprehension is very, very critical, right? At the end of the day, if you're building a motor, you need to know whether it's going to go into a truck or it's going to go into a ship. Without the broader context of how your pieces of the product is going to operate, you can't really do a good job of building the whole ship, right? So the softer skills as a result becomes so critical. And those also includes, your ability to empathize with the users or the consumers or stakeholders in a very meaningful way, right? So that is one perspective. The other perspective is that if it's going to be a very distributed team, you're going to work remotely, and you don't have the clue as to whatever piece you're building is how it's going to fit into the whole, the whole product, then it's going to be like the blind man and the elephant. So having a good soft skill, like I mentioned earlier, understanding the business context and user context, how things eventually work, unless you have that presence of mind and the ability to articulate it, and comprehension is a very important aspect of articulation in a way. So without that, I don't think just pure engineering skills or any unique skills that people bring to the table is going to suffice anymore. And the last point here is more and more products are going to be very digitally enabled, right? Whether it's an e-commerce solution or a solution like, Zolo. So if those products are not intuitive, if they're not intelligent, it's not going to be usable. And in today's time and age, we all have very little patience. And if the product is not usable, you just stop using it, as simple as that. So, and the only way you can make a product usable is to bring that empathy into it. So soft skills are going to be incredibly important one way or the other.
So which essentially also means that we should give serious importance, if not more importance, to the soft skills that you mentioned, including being able to empathize, being able to communicate, being able to even specific leadership skills, right? How do you influence your team, where, especially in the context of product and product roles, where nobody reports to a product manager most of the time, right? And in that context, how do you do that? So this becomes even more important in going forward. Is if that is the takeaway from the message that you're giving.
Otherwise, building a product can be a very frustrating experience.
Indeed. Yeah. So I want to just pick few questions. There are lots of questions, by the way. Thank you all for asking many of them. We seem to be creating a record today between the days in the number of questions. So I'll randomly read some names just to acknowledge folks. Utkarsh, Hari Prakash, Nitesh Mehra, Rahul Roy, all of you. But here's an interesting question that I want to pose to the panel, right? What are the best practices a mid-level professional should follow to shift from one domain where he works and get hired into another one? Are there any best practices to say, if I want to move from one industry to another, where maybe you spend 5, 6, 7 years in that and get to that? What is a good approach, if you can articulate? So I would say, how about Venkat, if you don't mind, if you can take that.
Sure. Right. It's going to be industry to industry, or one function to the function. Different, right? When you're a software engineer or product engineer, if you want to go to business development or product strategy or sales, that's something which is relatively easy because you can be a fresher to that new function. You can do some pseudo projects with the support of the organization, whether internally, externally.
Yeah, I think this was mainly for the mid-level professionals moving across industry. As you said, could be within the function or across the function.
Industry to industry, that could be a challenge depending upon what skills the person has got. It cannot be a completely new industry. Mindset should be, he's a fresher for that industry, should take up some mentors, start observing 2-3 years. It takes to move on. It's not, I wouldn't say it's not possible. It will be a little challenging. But it's a very open question, like from which industry to which industry. We do not, if you say petrochemical.
So let's say banking and financial industry to an e-commerce. I mean, I'm just hypothetically.
So that's a good example, right? Yeah. So banking to e-commerce, you did a lot of techno-functional consultants, domain consultants, or whatever you call, in the e-commerce industry. So you can start as a business consultant. You bring in a lot of expertise and then slowly learn technology. Your transition becomes easier. It takes about 2-3 years, and we are seeing that a lot of examples. Even in my company, we hire functional consultants who are not tech savvy, but in a couple of years they become techno-functional.
Okay. No, so that's thanks for that. I think we are slowly getting to the top of the hour. So quickly we can go around and get to closing remarks. We could start with Ram again, re-emphasizing that. Let's pick one trend that you are going to bet now your career on, if you will, right? Just pick one each, and then I'm sure that's gonna require some thinking, I suppose, but it's gonna benefit everyone. So what's one trend that you believe we all should be prepared for and be ready to make the best use of it?
Yeah, so I would say digital and automation. So anything that is manual will get automated and everything will work on a digital platform. That's going to be the new world.
Awesome. Excellent. Crisp and to the point. Awesome. Akhil, what about you?
I would say the continuous skill enhancement. Like in a resume, I'm just looking for your last 3 years or last 2 years. So continuous skill enhancement.
Continuous skill and continuously upskill and reskill. Look for things that you can learn new. And it could be technical skills, it could be product skills, it could be leadership skills or any of those, but probably all of those. Probably all of those.
Yeah. Even soft skills.
Yeah.
Somewhere you're learning where you kind of introspected and figured out that, okay, this is something which I should grow myself into.
Excellent. All right. Vardha, one last thing that you would bet your career on.
I would just say that it's just chase your dreams, and then the famous quote, right? Where skills cannot take, will take. So
more willpower.
Yeah, will, and more importantly, like the strongly you deep-rooted, whatever situations, scenarios are in front of you, you will not resist, but you will go through the process, but still be quite successful and happy. So one need to kind of imbibe those cultural element over a period of time as we started to run behind this materialistic world. We all know how to kind of earn money, but probably we just forgotten how to kind of be happy.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. Venkat, one last words from you, some wisdom.
Be curious. Of course, everyone spoke about upskilling. I think you should do upskilling based on self-assessment, just not go randomly behind skills, which are very popular. I see a lot of people who I counsel. I'm learning Python, I'm learning data science. I mean, probably a mechanical engineer. I mean, you need to look at what is that your self-assessment is, and then do a upskilling initiative should be aligned with your self-assessment, and be curious to learn new things that will keep you going.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. This has been very informative.